And Joe will be back in just a minute. This is a Water and Sewer Committee. August 8th. Members present, make a note here and not gonna work. All right, have a motion to accept the agenda.
We'll make the motion.
Paul, thank you. And second,
I'll second.
Joe, thank you. Pretty detailed agenda, but I think it's take care of everything tonight, so. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved. Copy of the July 11th meeting minutes there.
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Dylan, okay,
Let's look at that.
it's.
They weren't on the agenda I put together. That's something. Yeah.
No, we gotta correct that. I got the right minutes. We need to, go back and, do a recall on the, meeting agenda to include the Miller's, private grinder system. So if you allow me to recall that motion, to approve the agenda, we'll go back and, I make a motion, we recall the motion for the original agenda. Second, favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so looking at the agenda. Why don't we just under item number, between item 2 and 3. Camping World and wastewater treatment, why don't we just go ahead and put the Miller grinder station clean out. Grinder system clean out discussion. So I make that motion that we approve the agenda as amended to include the Miller grinder system clean out between items 2 and 3. Any other comment? I'm sorry?
Second.
Right.
I'll second it.
Second, okay, thank you. I saw you raise your hand. You. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just pulling my pen out of my head.
I stuff that way too. So. All right, all in favor of the motion as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay. We approve the minutes. So, first item on the agenda is our discussion about the Camping World septic dumping station proposal. And I believe Joe given you a letter.
Right, so there was a letter that I think was mailed out. This is the same letter. It really deals with Camping World. They are proposing an expansion of their facility. And as part of that, expansion, they want to put in a septic, dump station. And that dump station would discharge, into their sanitary sewer service that currently flows into the community waste treatment system, but will soon be diverted to Orinoco's wastewater system. So really, the letter kind of lays it out. You know, they are looking at up to 5,000 gallons a month. And basically servicing their customers. They're also, you know, would allow customers to, you know, fill propane tanks and they've got a little water service there to, you know, wash out things and clean up after themselves. But really the question for the city and the sewer and water committee is, do you want to be in the septic receiving business? I kind of laid it out and with both scenarios. If we do, then we should have some requirements in conjunction with our approval. And if we don't, then we don't, and they would essentially end up installing a on-site tank, and then they would periodically have to pump that tank every 2 or 3 weeks, probably during the summer. And so.
And from pumping the tank, that then whoever pumped the tank would haul it to the nearest wastewater treatment facility.
Right.
Probably Orinoco's.
Well, we don't have a septic receiving station at our facility, so it would probably go to Rochester or Pine Island, you know, and it's there are some pros and cons with septic receiving. In my opinion, the cons probably outweigh the pros. I think that you know, there's a fair amount of effort that goes into kind of monitoring and dealing with that. You know, the problems are that you are essentially receiving a waste stream. There's really no good way to meter it. It's a small flow. It's not like we're gonna put a flow meter in to meter that. We're probably not gonna sample it because there's not a tank or anything to sample from. You know, you're kind of getting whatever people want to dump in there. Some of that wastewater has been in the tank for quite a while and chemically is changing. And you know, that is likely pretty high strength waste. And it can be, you know, hard on concrete manholes in terms of the H2S gas that can be given off. Can be hard on lift stations and things like that, depending on where being flushed down it, and you know, you don't have any control over that. So on the positive side, you're providing a service to a business, you're getting a little bit of revenue out of it, you're getting 2 or 3 ERUs based on the recommendation. I guess the first question of the committee is, you know, are you interested in being in the septic receiving business? And if you are, then we should kind of look at the recommendations and walk through that and make sure that we are of kind of one mind moving forward with as we negotiate this with the contractor or the developer.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because when we originally talked about the plant, didn't we talk about adding at the actual plant, a septic receiving thing
Yeah.
for that business?
Well, not for that
Well,
business,
not-
but for any.
Not for that business, just in general, to have that
Mhm.
station so that. What was our final rationale or decision? We did not want it?
Declined to include it as part of the design scope. However, practically speaking, every manhole within the city can receive waste. Right? I mean, it'll get to the plant eventually. Now, I'm sure should be some ordinance against popping a manhole and dumping your artificial drain, you know, in the middle of the street.
There is.
Very, good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing, yeah.
You know, but if a circumstance arose at the plant where you needed to dump something, there would be ways to get it into the process and into the plant.
I think we looked at, you know, security issues, the need to monitor that and bill that for individual basis. You know, some of the infrastructure costs needed to support that, it just didn't really pencil out, and city's short-staffed as it is. And to take on that additional service for a modest revenue stream and a modest benefit didn't make sense, I think was kind of the ultimate.
And
Thought process.
and as you just stated before, Rochester and Pine Island, 2 very close facilities, will have that capability, correct?
Right. But the issue here for these folks is, you know, every 2 weeks during the season, they're gonna have to pay somebody to come in, pump that, and truck that out, and so, that gets expensive pretty fast. Probably much more expensive than discharging to the city system, but that's not the city's, it's up to you whether you wanna provide that service or not. And, like I said, there are some pros and cons that I kind of lay out within the letter here. And the big question is, do you wanna take on that service? And Sunny and Kane and I have all kind of talked about it, and our thought was we were probably leaning towards not taking that on, given the modest amount of staff the city has and the difficulty in billing and the risks associated with, taking a waste stream that you just have no idea what's in it.
What would Tilly's do? What's the plan there? I'm assuming they've got full service hookups for RVs.
They do, their system goes to a central location.
Yep.
And that will gravity feed into the city's collection system.
So essentially the same waste.
Well, it doesn't sit. Theoretically, it doesn't sit. I mean, they're discharging as they use it, right?
No, typically you'll let your tanks fill up and then you'll dump it all at once, otherwise it'll plug the lines.
I'm not sure how their systems set up over there, but
Yeah, so, for all intents and purposes, it's the same practical use. But if you
I think the only difference I would see in the American or Tilly's RV service versus a service department is that, in my mind, I think there's still some, I'm sure Camping World wants to make sure that it's all dumping in there, but what about oils or that would accidentally be put into the system?
Yeah,
Whereas the RV is all RV sewage, so not that it would happen, but
that is a risk. If somebody comes by and dumps all their old paint or whatever down the 3-inch hole in the ground, but they could also do that down their toilet at home.
yeah, they could.
And I would say, especially if you ask Camping World to put some sort of video surveillance there. And a little sign that says, video recording in progress or whatever those things say. That probably eliminates that risk. Cause like you said, people dump all kinds of crazy stuff down the drain in their toilet in their home. And so I don't see that. I don't see that it's a significantly different risk, and I look at it a little bit differently. A wastewater treatment plant is intended to serve the residents and ratepayers within the city with waste treatment, waste conveyance and treatment services. And this is a user, a ratepayer that's asking us to service their needs. So I would be generally in support of it, reading through it and, things about security and video monitoring and things like that. And I don't think we need to meter it, you put a cash box out with $2 on our systems, whether city staff collects it or Camping World gets the fee, and we just charge them a flat $50 a month for the, something like that. I think there's ways to work that out that don't take any staff time. So I would be in support of it, generally speaking.
And full disclosure, I have a travel trailer.
I mean, I guess, what if let's say some small manufacturing plant wanted to come in,
Use that.
who's gonna be producing, non-standard sewage waste, like let's say they run a lot of water.
Those issues are highlighted.
We'll have, or maybe they do some on-site treatment and have some kind of, discharge from their plant or something. So I think we should kind of be ready for what might.
That would normally be covered under a pre-treatment plan and somebody would have to sample their wastewater twice a
Sure.
year.
They'd be regulated from the generator.
Yeah.
But the Camping World thing is just gonna be doses. It's not gonna be, they just had a 500 gallon bulk tank and they're gonna dump it every Friday or something.
Yeah, they're like 50 gallons at most.
One concern I would have. Sure, that because this is a new system. And. We're starting out with a request for such as this. And but at the same time, we don't know what we don't know. So I want to be concerned about the precedent setting, whether it's any other type of RVs coming. It's a destination point now, so there could be other RVs coming. There could be a truck stop coming, you know, something larger, commercial, more commercial, that we have to have the same discussion with future semi, and we talk not having industrial with those, that's a different, I think that's a different animal because there's a lot of pre-treatment coming from the industry, from industrial plants, but I guess my summary of my comment is just basically a precedent setting of having other dumping and holding systems dumping into our system, whereas RV is a straight RV being dumped into the system immediately. It's not being held.
I would assume the city will get a petition not too far after with other. What is it? Hilltop would probably wanna offer similar service.
I mean, if there's, honestly, if Camping Worlds is not secured, they wouldn't need to. Right? You don't need to have two RV dumps right next to each other. Or frankly, if Tilly's started to charge people $10 a pop to dump at Tilly's. That's pretty common for campgrounds to allow non-campers to come dump there. So. And in which case, you know, none of that's gonna be metered or charged or accounted for at all either, so.
So he's got.
Sounds good. Hand up there.
If I could just to be clear, Tilly's is now separate from the American Travelers RV.
All right, yeah, the RV side,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I will say I did struggle with this a little bit because Camping World is already an established business in the city. I think you can, you know, perhaps want to monitor certainly going forward, but I like I say, you know, Joe and I talked about it and he and I know Ladian as the mayor, and it's a tough call, you know, but like you're saying, there are roundabouts to it, right? So trying to, in essence, penalize one because you've got, like you say, Hilltop's there, you got the RV, American Travelers are my 2 cents.
Yes. For me, I guess I'm more along the lines of you. When I thought we were getting this wastewater treatment plant, we wanted businesses and stuff to come, right? And grow our city, which is they're all gonna bring waste. You're gonna end up, guarantee eventually gonna have a car wash place, right? That's gonna have a ton more stuff coming through the sewer system. We already have the campground right next down the street from here. That's gonna be discharging RV waste into our system. I would feel comfortable doing it as long as we safeguard it, you know, because I guess that's my feeling. It's like we've already allowed for the campsite ground right there. Now to tell one of our longstanding, a business that's been here for several years at least, not longstanding, newer, but still a business paying taxes in our city. No, we don't want you to do it. Charge them the 3 or whatever 4 hour you use, whatever it is, so you make sure you're covering your expenses, add all the safeguard rules in so that they're not going to have things that we don't want in there that will ruin our new system. And monitor it somehow. I think then you can do it in a controlled fashion so that if others want to do it and they're willing to pay the price, it's going to offset some of the costs, hopefully, in the city. Decrease the risk of these bad things happening and ruining our system, costing much more than you're collecting from them, right?
Well, that's one of the issues is there's really no, it's not, unless you're gonna stand there and watch it every day, all day. There's no way to monitor it.
But you wouldn't just put this out in the open, like, as you're like, I'm not expecting this out in the open, like, anybody can just walk up and dump to this, right? This should be in a little
It's
controlled.
not, they got it out there pretty much all the.
But that's what I'm saying is, can't we make those recommendations? Like, you gotta put a security camera or a fence around it or something to control it, because it says in there, I thought I read, that they had to have a name log and thing of who's dumping in there,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't ask for some sort of register.
So you have to have something, so it's not like I can just walk up there, with a bucket and just be like, I don't know what I'm dumping. If you have safeguards and controls, so it isn't just an open pit, right, sort of.
Yeah.
Can you control it so it's safe? We're giving opportunities for our businesses to use our facilities safely, and you're getting added revenue. That will help offset the operating costs.
And it is in their parking lot, so it's not, so for example, I've used. Dump stations at a car wash in Lake City, again, not monitored, for customers only, but. Whatever, like, people could dump anything down it. Spring Valley's got one right outside their public works. Storage area, same kind of deal.
This one here, isn't there? The Rochester plant has one.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to use ours in this example, just because our volumes are so much bigger in Rochester that you literally could dump anything you wanted down it. We wouldn't know, as long as you put your $2
So we'll send them to
in the cash
Rochester.
box, but yeah, so it's such an insignificant thing in Rochester that, yeah, we got a $2, honor system, put your money in the box, and somebody goes out every Monday, because every Sunday it's like clockwork back down at the RV dump. But honestly, that's one of our most popular things people call about is we put it on the automated answering, because that's all anybody wants to know is, when can I dump? How much does it cost? And how do I get to it?
Well, it seems like it could be like Hilltop, where their stuff is all fenced in anyway.
Well, this would be out front.
When they put it so that it's in a fenced in area.
I'm sure they don't want to.
I think they're selling propane at the same time, basically it's a one-stop, fill up,
Yeah.
dump and fill up your facility. It's a convenience, right, to their customers.
So this is outside security.
But I think it is lit.
Yeah, and again, I think if it's in their lit parking lot, and if you put you ask them to put video surveillance on it, I would bet as a condition of approval, I'm sure they would be agreeable to that. And so then it's really just how do you monitor and track the usage? 2 years from now, we could watch a day's worth of video or a week's worth of videos. Is it worth the 5 ERUs, or are we getting hosed on it? Should we charge more or less?
That's really the only way is to do some sort of count over a reasonable period of time and do the math, because you can't sample it, you can't flow monitor it, you just don't know what you're getting. But those 5 ERUs, you're gonna get that 12 months a year, and it's not even gonna be used. Probably not November through March. But you're still gonna get paid for it. Yep. So.
Since they can't dump it there, they're gonna dump it someplace.
Right.
And that's why I guess that was my thought, is I'd rather have a controlled situation and be paid for it than find somebody popping the manhole cover or doing something else.
Well, they will put it in, it's just whether it's cost effective, they'll put it in a tank and people will still be able to dump there, it's just that the owner would have to truck it to Pine Island or Rochester. Which is expensive, compared to just dumping it, but the service would be there. It's just not served by the city's wastewater treatment plant if we decline it.
Give them a $2 coupon to take it to the process, but
And according to the folks that, I talked to, that are designing this, they say about half the cities allow this, half the cities don't. Half the cities make them, put in the tank. And they can do that. They've got a detail, they do it all the time, they said. They just need to know where the city stands on it.
Well, we're a city that's sitting right on a main highway.
To our
Zero
dealers.
fare, we're good.
Yeah.
We'll get a lot more than some towns, do. But I don't think that. We got people out there that, like I said, come to town. And we want them to come to town and I think we should take care of something.
We both.
So the response to, have you had, did the camping group respond to this letter?
No, they're waiting for a response from the city. I said I'd take it to sewer and water committee and the council next week and see what people want to do. And I did kind of put in there what at least I would recommend are essentially conditions of acceptance, if that's the direction that the city wants to do.
You wanna take a straw poll of sewer and water?
Well, I don't think you need to take a straw poll. I think you should make a recommendation to the council. And
That'd
then,
be, I like that approach from the standpoint, I think it's. We're right on a major highway and, but we're also a very rural community too. And, with this being non-secure, except for whatever conditions can be applied or video cameras or security of some type of issue, that's the one concern I would have is that just because the abuse of it, I guess, is once that information gets out that people can.
even the security camera, I mean, you can see people dumping into this dump station, but you have no idea what's in there.
Well, yeah. It comes out of an RV. But again, you don't have cameras in people's toilets, in their houses.
The conditions you mentioned.
Yeah, so those conditions were kind of laid out on the second page. Starts with how many ERUs we would charge them. They're, 5,000 gallons a month is essentially an ERU for a single family residential, but they're, well stronger than domestic strength waste. And so,
More volumes. I mean, it is, it's stronger because my toilet uses like.
well, they're saying that
Flush.
they would discharge up to 5,000 gallons per month, and that's essentially one ERU.
Okay.
But a single family ERU, and that waste stream will be, much less intense than,
okay.
so that's why I'm saying, maybe we charge them 2 or 3 ERUs.
Yeah, okay.
Instead of 1, just based on volume. And then their base charge for the sewer rate would be based on the same number of ERUs, of course, 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever you guys want. And then I also proposed an annual septic dump station charge $2,000 a year. And increasing 5% every year thereafter for the right to do that. And then kind of impose some other,
I like your screen idea about catching trapping large things and.
I think people don't lose hoses down pipes, honestly, is what I've been told.
Yeah, they do.
You probably know what the problems are more than I do, you know. And then, of course, we wouldn't want them to commence until obviously our wastewater system is operational. Obviously, they can't discharge this stuff at the community waste treatment system.
So item C about Camping World required to keep a log of septic discharges, including source name, address, volume, discharging and service. So that information that they sent to the city would determine the
No,
fees.
it would not. It's just for our information.
Okay, so there's a flat fee.
Well, then there's a usage charge based on 5,000 gallons a month too.
Okay, so there is,
Yeah.
we need that information to charge it.
No, we don't. We're just gonna assume it's 5,000 gallons a month.
Oh, okay, okay.
So in January, they're gonna pay for 5,000 gallons a month, and July, they're gonna pay for 5,000 gallons a month.
Got it.
For ERU, right?
Did they submit that?
For the base charge per ERU, and then there's a volume charge on top of that, that isn't per ERU, it's just based on volume. But I wouldn't wanna depend on that log for volumes, it's just kind of,
It'd be something to track. later.
well, it's a safeguard, right, you know? Larry Stope was there on August 5th and he dumped 70 gallons of wastewater. Well, if we had, it's something, right?
Have you did have video surveillance, eventually you could match that up if we ever wanted to audit or check, right? If you were concerned, there's other dumping going on that.
It's far from foolproof, but it's something.
How soon would something, say an issue appear out of the pump, out of the plant then? I mean, would you want that list of potential patrons on a more frequent basis than just semi-annually?
I don't think so unless you knew that there was a problem. I guess you could request it. Request the list, look at the log, whatever, but it would take a little bit of time for that to show up. It's not instantaneous by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
So,
Just thinking in terms of the safeguards that.
it's just hard to know. You got so many connections. It came from there, if. And even what it is, because the volumes of, they're just little volumes of water in a pretty significant volume, and so it's hard to know where it came from, when it was deposited. It's darn near an impossible task, but if you have, other reports of, somebody doing something they shouldn't, and well, you have a log that says they were at this place at this time, and you start to put the dots together, I guess.
For these conditions that you're proposing for recommendation from the committee to the council, I think it's very good. I mean, it does put some financial burden on Camping World to adhere to it. And they may say, no, that's okay, we'll just not do it.
Right.
We don't know if that will occur or not, but I think it's very appropriate for the Water and Sewer Committee to make a recommendation that these conditions would be needed for the council to review and to approve going forward, because I do think it's minimizing our risk. At the same time, we're protecting the taxpayers who are funding the funding of the sewer plant. It's putting on Camping World if there's some liability, if there are some MPCA levying fines that comes from Camping World. So that's protecting the city too. So I do.
If you can prove it,
You
right?
can prove it, but that's.
But maybe you can.
I guess I would make a motion that we would recommend the city council to approve it with these restrictions and charging a minimum 2 ERUs. 3 is probably be acceptable too. City council gets to decide that, not us.
Mike, you can make a recommendation as to whatever you guys think is fair and equitable. I would.
Definitely more than one, because there's a
Oh, yeah.
risk, there's a higher risk here. I just don't know 2 or 3, and I guess I turn to you guys, because I don't have a camper, my disclosure. So I don't know how much like waste and stuff this is really gonna pull in. If 3 is appropriate, then 3.
Yeah, well, if you're landing up at Rochester on the weekends, I think 3 is legit,
So
so.
then my recommendation would be to charge 3 ERUs with these safeguards. I don't know, I still like Dylan's video camera idea.
I think we'd add that in.
I would add that, I would add that into here. So on C where it says they keep a log, there's also video surveillance. 24-hour video surveillance being recorded there.
I'm sure they already have a system, they just have to add a camera.
Yeah,
That would be my
they got a
recommendation.
lot of inventory over there not to have the system. The only thing I'm.
So before you take away from this motion,
Yeah.
so your motion is to recommend the 2 ERUs with conditions as stated in the August 3rd letter of Joe's August 3rd letter. I don't think we need to go through unless you want to deviate from those conditions outside the 2 ERUs.
So 3 ERUs,
3, okay. I missed
3
it.
ERUs, and then add in video, 24-hour video surveillance. Along with all the conditions listed here in this letter. That would be my motion.
24/7 video.
Or motion detecting video that'll trigger when the vehicle shows up.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Under motion detecting video, so when a vehicle shows up, it starts, that's common technology and CCTV systems.
The only thing I would maybe propose, and I don't know how to frame it, but I think for this,
We have a second to his motion.
well, I might wanna make a friendly amendment.
Okay.
The fee structure. I think that eventually, this fee structure is not gonna work for either the city or for the camping world. And so there should be some provision in there that, you know, eventually we may have a commercial waste ordinance or commercial waste rates. That this would be superseded by any eventual ordinance. The number of ERUs, the annual fee, those type of things, you know, if we just plug this in here for now and forever. You know, especially that 5% increase, I don't know if I was Camping World, you know, $2,000 this year, you know, 5% every single year. You know, that's gonna get to be a really big number at some point. When you're already paying on top of, you're already paying the fee.
They're paying
Right.
$2,000 on top of 3
And
years.
so at some point, I think we're probably gonna need to, you know, maybe not for the American Traveler RV Park, but, we're gonna have to probably have some commercial, non-residential wastewater fee structure, if we don't already, and this could maybe be superseded by whatever that fee structure looks like. I don't know if we'd want to actually have some sort of agreement with them for this that spells out these terms and conditions and in a more formal, legally binding document than the approval letter on a grading and utility plan. I would assume that we probably would. Yeah, I would think that, you know, somebody's gonna want some assurances that it's not gonna, 2,000 is not gonna change to 4,000 next year, right? Well, I don't know, all rates, there are no assurances, right? I mean,
No, most are in ordinance and it's subject to council approval, and there's other checks and balances in the mix, right?
Here,
Okay, so-
fee schedule did recognize a commercial rate for the water.
Okay.
So that's new this year, and I would expect that to translate on the sewer side as well.
All of you accept his friendly amendment to,
I accept the friendly amendment.
for a second,
I'll second it.
Larry? So here's the motion, as I understand it. Motion to recommend to council 3 ERUs with conditions as stated in Joe Hagan's August 3rd letter. And to add a 24/7 video coverage and can be superseded and fees, I should say, superseded with any commercial, non-residential utility ordinance in the future. Good,
Sounds good.
all right,
Sounds
I
good.
can read my writing better, okay. So any more discussion? So. No other discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation to council signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, we'll hopefully get that on the council's agenda. Sunny, okay? All right, that's it. All right,
Here, I think that one.
next agenda was discussing the Miller grinder station, grinder system clean out. The Millers are here with us tonight, so there's been a lot of discussion.
If you could just identify yourselves, I know who's on the committee, but I don't know, I can't put a name and a face together.
I'm Paul Janetto.
Oh,
And your title, Paul?
What's that?
Your title?
Just a committee member.
Committee member?
Dylan Christopherson.
no. Larry, right?
Larry Stone,
Okay,
just a committee.
Joe Kimmis.
great, thank you.
Thanks for having us tonight, and Doug has been helping us significantly on our project and has been in contact more closely with the people doing the work, so.
We had started to build and then our contractor lost his license, so it kind of left us halfway in the lurch. And so Joe is, Doug is a really good friend of ours, and he's just been helping us find contractors to complete the build. And so he has been the one, since we have no water or sewer, we have been living in a cabin in Wisconsin and commuting back and forth. And so he has been there on a more daily basis to help direct people and operations. And Neil and Doug has done most of the contact, and that's why we thought he would be better to speak for us. Everything I know is kind of through Doug, from talking to all the contractors, and he's been extremely helpful to us.
So our concern, can I turn this down a little better?
Yeah.
Let me do that.
Thanks, nice to meet you.
I figured it would do it for me.
Thank you.
So a couple of concerns we have is with our sewer hookup right now is Ellingson is hooking up about 84 connections. They don't have to put any clean outs on any of their connections. No matter what the length is. 100 feet, 200 feet, 600 feet, 800 feet. 0 connections, right? Our connection's 184 feet. We would be the 85th person. And we're being told that we have to put a sewer clean out on there. I don't understand why that is. The responses I get from Sunny, and I mean, I'm not putting anybody down in here, everybody's trying to do what they can. Is the Minnesota statute says you have to have a clean out on every 100 feet. So I have personally studied that.
Me too.
Many hours of it. Nowhere,
I've looked at it also, so.
So for clarification, this is on the gravity portion between the house and the grinder station? No.
no,
Where it was,
this was from the grinder station to the road.
oh,
Force fed Force fed. Now, I've studied this, not being an expert on it, I've had to research it quite a bit myself too. I can find 100 places in there that say we have to put a clean out on gravity. But I've yet to find anything that says you have to put a clean out on a force fed. Anywhere.
And nobody's been able to show us where it says
Nobody
that.
can prove to us.
I asked Sunny. I've directed letters to the community, the council.
Yeah, and I would say that I don't disagree with you. I think it's ridiculous.
And by the way, Ellingson doesn't have to put them on any of their 84, but we have to put them on ours, and theirs are a lot longer than ours. And to make it even better yet, you know, Joe, we're putting in a 1,000-gallon tank versus a 30-gallon tank. And the reason we're doing that is because the Millers live in Florida 8 months of the year. They stay at their cabin in northern Wisconsin about 3.5 months a year. I'm only gonna use this place 3 or 4 weeks a year, right? But I understand if they sell it 10 years down the road, somebody else, but we're putting in a 1,000-gallon tank for safety reasons, because if the power goes out, or there's an alarm, or there's a failure, we don't want the backup to go into the house. If the power's out for a day and they're staying there, they got a 1,000-gallon tank. It's gonna hold anything, right? So we don't have to pump every day. There's gonna be very minimal usage on this anyway, but my question to you guys is, why are we being forced to put this in?
Can you, who, building inspector is pushing the issue?
Randy Botham.
This is you.
You, the
He
city
said
hired
it's a Minnesota-
CMS, CMS,
Unless it's the building inspector for the city.
Their city building inspection.
and you hired him, and he's the only one that seems to think that there needs to be a cleanup. And the cook is the one that's handling ours, and I sent an email to you today. All the surrounding communities, Casson, where all were there. remember,
Rochester,
Rochester,
Manorville, Byron, every place they're putting them
up to
in,
400,
they have never once put a clean out on. And let me tell you the downfall to a clean out. If I have a solid pipe going out there, 184 feet, which is our length, I'm gonna use that for another example, 184 feet with 0 connections on it. Odds of getting a clog in there from the grinder station, which is basically water or sludge, right? Once it's ground, basically gonna be 95% water. Joe, you probably know more than anybody on that, but it's basically gonna be a flow. Now, if I am forced to put these connections on, and the one we went and purchased is gonna have 4 connections in my line now. You know what those 4 connection spots are gonna do? Be a potential clog spot for that pipe. Right? Probably the most ridiculous thing you could ever do in your life is put potential clog spots on this.
I, from the city's perspective, at least I, as the city engineer, agree with you. I think it's
thank you, Joe.
silly to require this. I think it's a misinterpretation of the code. But I can also tell you that we have had lots of discussions with the building official, and, you know, the difference between the public system, those 83 systems and yours, is the 83 systems are publicly owned and constructed and are being installed under my license, right? Yours isn't. Yours is a private system subject to the building inspector's interpretation of the building code. And I believe me, we've had lots of discussions to say, this can't happen, this is silly. We've seen these go in all over. And cleanouts aren't put on small diameter force mains, not on residential properties. Now they are in the street. So there's inline cleanouts and endpoint cleanouts that are part of the city system, but not on yours.
But those are they not 4-inch lines?
Well, they're anywhere from 1.5 to 4-inch lines. Yeah, they
Ours is
vary.
not even 1.5.
Well,
So-
if they go OD is 2-inch, we have a
All right.
2-inch OD, so.
So, you know, I'm not the building official, and none of us are. I do agree with you, and we voiced that opinion that that's not the way it's done, and it doesn't make sense. And we are continuing to have those discussions and trying to,
How can this building official? I mean, does he inspect anything else, any other community?
yes,
And what about those communities?
there's not a lot of these systems and places apparently that they inspect. I don't know.
So is he a state employee under the Department of Labor?
No, he's a contract building inspector.
But there's two of them there,
And you
right?
guys can override that, by the way,
I don't know.
legally.
Right,
you can
so
override
that's,
that.
I guess, Joe, from your perspective as a professional engineer, because you do have a professional engineering degree and degree certification, so it seems to me like if you were to, if the committee was to recommend to council that using your professional engineering certificate or stamp,
I'm not gonna sign anything. It's not.
that's not.
It's not my system.
possibility.
It's a
Yeah.
private property. I don't work for the owner. There's other people that can do that, but I'm not doing that.
Who's the other people?
Hire another engineer.
Yeah, you guys
Well-
are an engineer.
Or the state
What
Department of
engineer?
Labor,
Who's the engineer?
No, if you- if you had one, just assist.
A licensed engineer, kind of like you hire an attorney or, you'd hire a licensed engineer to review the system. And then sign a drawing that basically says you don't need a cleanup.
Our entire plan.
For your grinder station installation.
Well, I mean, obviously it's gotta go somewhere.
So it does. Local building officials have pretty broad authority.
So they could overrule,
Well, so the.
It's your
city-
recommendation, they
it's
can
a-
overrule it.
It's a state plumbing code probably that he's interpreting, right?
He is going by the
Yes.
state code, that's
Yeah,
exactly
so-
what he told me,
And
and
so,
he can't prove to me anywhere where it is, other than every thing he tells me to look at only talks about 4-inch gravity flow. Nothing talks about a 2-inch line that's being forced to float. No, I have,
yeah,
and I'm honest to God, I have studied this till midnight some of these nights over the last 2 weeks, just trying to find anything that would say I have to put it in, because if I can find anything that says that, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install it. The second thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to the city here and say, Ellingson needs to put them on every one of his. I don't give a damn who owns it. If it's a state code, they have to be put in,
So Joe,
but they're not being forced at Ellingson.
you've
just
already
us.
talked to him? You've already talked to the building inspector directly?
I've been in meetings with them and my staff have talked to them at length.
So Stantec has formally told them that they believe it does not need a clean out. And this individual still says that it does.
Well, we've talked to them about the system we're installing, yes. Again, we're not
Which is different,
inspecting
a
the
municipal-
private systems.
municipal public utility versus private.
It's not a different system. It's the exact same system, exact same system Ellingson's putting in. To a T. As a matter of fact, we've upgraded our system. You know that when you looked at it. We put a bigger pump in, we put a bigger holding tank in.
So from a jurisdiction standpoint, answer me this.
And
Sounds,
I did place a call to the state plumbing code.
yeah, that's what I was,
Yeah.
like, who's above this guy? Like, that's what I was trying to figure out is who can the city go to? Who can they go to above him that says, can you interpret this code? This is how we interpret it. That's not how this local building inspector is interpreting it. And that way it kept top down to him saying, no, you're wrong.
And who's paying the inspector? If he's a contracted inspector.
permit fees paid to the local jurisdiction.
So we have talked to anybody at WSE, division of the home over CSM?
No, why would I? I mean, still a private issue.
What's it?
It's still a private property issue. It's not part of the sewer project.
No,
So
I'm
I
saying-
haven't been dealing with it from that perspective.
I'm just talking, if we talk to the parent company, WSE and Massey, who this CSM is a division of, it's my understanding, to go with Randy to talk to his supervisor, manager, developer, owner. Have we approached that yet or not?
That would be what
Bill
happened.
Toington, he's a developer engineer for WSC Massey.
Yeah, that would be a option. I know they have a couple engineers over there. Bill is planner, but Dan Zemke's over there and he's been a party to some of these conversations and. You know, he.
Because it's clear, it's an interpretation. And right now, if you go to this plumbing code zoning or Minnesota plumbing code, there's, if you Google the word pressure, it's not in there. There's no reference to, they just talk about gravity, if anything. So it's an interpretation, so it seems like the city would want to. Maybe would recommend to the council that we look to the owners of CSM for a clear understanding, because right now we have an interpretation between the two parties. And we need like better clarification if they know somebody at the state level to give us that understanding, or obviously they've had this other issue too, so.
Yeah.
A lot of people have issues with Randy, I gotta tell you that. I've done research on him also.
It's you know, it's unfortunate you're having to deal with it because we know there's gonna be other
I
private,
was just gonna say, you
there's
know.
gonna be
who's
other
gonna be
private
the
grinder
owner?
stations, so we need to.
But I think the difference is right now is this is holding the Millers up from moving into their house.
Well, it's not from the standpoint of sewer isn't available for you to pump into,
No,
Until the plant's open.
no,
right?
The
So,
sewer- But the
But we
sewer, this
can't-
whole project is holding us up right from them moving in. Everything else in the house is done.
And there's an open hole sitting there.
It's what?
and there's
There's
an
an
open
open
hole sitting.
I've got a hole
And it's
probably
expensive, 'cause
25
they're-
feet long
right.
and probably 8 feet deep and probably 6 feet wide right now in the middle of the driveway. Which is where the cleanout would have to end up, right in the middle of the driveway, because that's 100 foot.
So I mean, I wish I had a better, based on my understanding, which is not, you know, I'm not, I don't know everything for sure. But as a state plumbing code official, the only recourse would be either to his, and since he's a private contractor and worked on this, would be, you know, higher up within that organization, which is, what is it called?
WSC and Macy,
WS,
WSC and Macy,
okay.
or Massey, I'm sorry.
Massey, and so that's one recourse. The other would be reach out to the folks at the Department of Labor and Industry Codes and Enforcement. Which is, you know, the folks at the state that presumably this organization has the authority granted to them by the state. I mean, I don't know who else would allow them to do plumbing inspections, so. Reach out to the state officials and just say, hey, we're having a problem with these folks.
Just for clarification, was it this committee or the city council that granted Ellingson the dispensation? They don't have to put anything in. Who made that decision?
Well, that was the decision that was made back in February of 2021. When we were assigning easements.
Yeah, so
No, you had no cleanouts in 2021 of February 2021.
Public land, that's right.
yeah, and Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that process would have worked is engineers at Stantec would have designed the system. Another engineer, a licensed engineer, would have reviewed it and stamped it with his or her license and said, this is approved by me. Then that would have gone to the state for plan review. Somebody at the state would have approved it, and then Ellingson builds it.
And that's probably 100% right. Because they knew when they gave them the design that whoever drew the design up and they both put their stamp on it and sent it to the state, that you don't need a clean out on a forest bed grinder station. You don't.
And we got.
Absolutely, positively don't need them.
From 2021, we have a permit that was issued by the state and the city. It was approved. So why are we not grandfathered into that same?
Well, at the same token, though, we have inspections from state inspectors that come out and review our installation, and if they find something they don't like, whether it's on the plans or not, they will tell the contractor that there's a.
Your plans and say you had to put them in.
They do, but the inspectors will sometimes find things that were missed in plan review, And in that case, it's on the responsibility of the owner and the contractor to satisfy the inspecting official.
So Ellingson has told me, and I've talked to a few of their employees that have said they
Right,
have
Joe?
also never installed a clean out on a forced bed grinder station. Never. I've also got an email that I think was sent, I don't know who you sent it off to, that I got from
Honestly,
DeCook. All their locations that they put them in the last year and a half. And no city has ever told them they have to have a clean out. Only on gravity flow do you have to have cleanouts. What I'm asking for tonight is permission to backfill that hole. Very dangerous hole, even though I got a piece of tape around it that says caution, somebody's gonna fall in it, somebody's gonna sue somebody. That somebody's gonna go after the city of Orinoco, I'll guarantee you that, because we're being held up from backfilling that pit because they want to inspect it. They want it left open until we get it inspected with a clean out on it. You guys can override that tonight and say, Doug, pardon me?
I don't think we can.
We can't do
We
that.
don't have-
property.
Fill it in.
Somebody can, why not? Mayor can, why not? Somebody can.
Well, that's not the purpose of our committee. We make recommendations to the council. However. I
So
do
can,
think
let me
there's-
ask you this, can you make a recommendation to the council tomorrow and then give us an answer tomorrow, or do we need to wait till next Tuesday for the council meeting? Now you're putting this off another
But
week.
council, you're telling me the council, it doesn't make any difference what the council says.
What's that?
Didn't you just say it didn't matter? You don't have the authority to do it as private property. The council doesn't have the authority to say it because it's private property. Am I misunderstanding that?
The council has the authority in
To make a
my,
recommendation.
well, to pass variances or to grant variances to city ordinance.
Okay, so
Um,
could we get, I mean,
this
if they choose,
Yeah, where this is not a city ordinance, this is state plumbing code or an interpretation of it. And so I don't think the council has that authority either.
okay, so what
Funny
happens if
because our
we,
inspector told us they did.
well, you know what I think of their inspector.
Well, I don't think that. but
So what happens if we fill it in?
That's a
Right, we
great
dug out
question.
once there's a determination. A clean out is not necessary, if is necessary, but I don't. That's the risk you take, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not advising, just in my head, what I'm thinking, if this were me, eventually that permit's gonna need to get closed out. To get financial paperwork going and a certificate of occupancy and all those things. And if the plumbing inspector hasn't signed off on his permit, you're not gonna get that.
Correct.
And so, again, I'm not advising, I'm just thinking what would happen, or what are the potential outcomes.
But how ridiculous is this? Ellingson's gonna put in 83 or 84, I don't remember the number, without a clean out. Somebody has, I've talked to these installers, they're placing some of these 400 feet long.
Is he the?
I don't give a damn who owns it, I don't care if the city owns it or if it's privately owned, it really makes no difference.
Inspecting the city.
I would-
I think we're all in
I think
agreement.
we're time-
I agree, I
You know,
understand.
From a
I think
timing
you
issue.
need the authority. I think the two recommendations that I heard is go above him, right, to
Right.
the Macy, to his boss who contracts him.
So who is that Macy
WSC and Macy. Massey.
and that WSE and Massey
It's the engineering company.
and who company? Engineering company?
Yes.
Can you guys go to them and recommend that they throw this out?
And I did try calling.
They work for you guys.
And what
Yeah.
happened?
I did, well, he was on vacation last week, so, today's Tuesday, I'm getting to it. It's on the list, but it was after I had back to.
But if
So
you guys
that's
go
on
to
the
them and
list.
say, we're recommending no clean out on this. We want you to do an override because there's nothing we can find that says they have to have a clean out on a forest bed grinder. No,
Yeah.
if there is, they need to show it to me. I'm tired of reading the book. I
Yeah.
mean, it's boring, I'll be honest with you, it's
Yeah.
a really boring book.
Well, yeah, and when I called the state, they acknowledged that, it's in there. It calls for cleanouts on lines that are not to exceed 100 feet. So every 100 feet, you gotta put one, but there is no reference to, pipe size at all. Or like you say, whether it's gravity fed or pressure. So-
There's no reference to the grinder station, period. So there should be something in there about grinder stations that say you need them every 100 feet or you don't need them on grinder stations. There should be something.
And
there.
it does call for, the minimum 2-inch.
Correct, which is
Outside
what we put
joiner.
in, that's what we put in,
Yeah,
2 inch
so-
OD we put in there.
Right. So,
We're putting in the exact same pipe that Ellie's just putting in, ours is a different color, but it's the exact same pipe, same company that made it for us.
you need to volunteer to sit on that board,
What board?
plumbing board. Because it's made up of plumbers and contractors and inspectors. But I will, make a point of calling them tomorrow too and see
Thank you,
what they say.
thank you.
So can I assume you guys are all recommending that we don't have to put one in so that Sunny can bring that up to him tomorrow when she talks to him?
I certainly wouldn't
I would
say that, but I I would, would say I'd recommend that you don't put in a clean out. It's unusual, it would be the first one I've seen in
Precedent
25 years.
setting, yeah.
So,
Put another pod, like, doesn't make
it's,
sense.
it's not how these systems are done on private property. But it's private property. So,
I mean, I'm just stumped because
Well, and Stantec, in their defense, really can't, you're asking him to go in an awkward position because he's the city's engineer. And he's tied to that plant, which is separate from, right, what he's saying, the municipal system versus private property system. Is that fair, Joe?
I mean, in my experience, I've run into inspectors who are jerks.
Yeah,
This
we
is
did
just
too.
off the list, I mean, where we were recorded, but I mean, I've run into inspectors who are jerks and they're power hungry, this kind of thing. And there is ways to move around. It's a pain in the butt, but like these guys are recommending, you need to move up the stack above this guy. And, say,
Cause he
hey,
wouldn't even tell us who his boss was.
right, exactly. He's the big belt buckle cowboy boots inspector. I mean, I've run into them many times, so. You gotta work around them or direct them over here and distract them and get your other thing done, so.
So the best thing is to go to this Massey.
If that's who he works for, yeah, that's who writes his paycheck, yeah, you wanna go to them.
And Sunny, are you doing that or?
He's actually employed by CSL,
That's what I thought you said.
right? Which is,
But they're a sub to this other group.
no, it's a subsidiary, well, yeah, not a
Yeah,
subcontractor, but it's.
construction management services.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a website, they've got offices and,
Yeah,
you know,
no,
around
yeah.
the area and stuff. So if you really want to, you can show up at their doorstep and you can let them know.
CSM, what does that stand for?
CMFs.
CMS.
Construction service management. Construction services management.
Construction management.
Oh, it's CMS.
CMS.
Thank you.
I just spoke to, so.
It's so great.
Just for, so we don't play the telephone game.
So I make a motion that we have city staff contact the management at WSE and Massey to help with an interpretation of a clean out for a grinder system. At least if we have that discussion, then we know that the CMS person, the building inspector, is either being supported or the interpretation, I guess, but if that fails, then I'd say we take the next step of I do think we need to at least get an interpretation from that company. I'm sure this has happened in other cases too.
Not locally.
So is there a second?
Could you restate the motion, please?
The motion is to have staff contact the management at WSE and Massey to help with the interpretation with the CMS building inspector in Orinoco that's dealing with the Miller property.
I'll second it.
Is it gonna come up on any other properties besides theirs?
Well, yeah,
It will,
Everyone,
every one of them.
if you
It
have. this
shouldn't be
inspector-
just
As a
stated
building
just
inspector.
their property, then it should be.
yeah, we'll take off,
The
we'll just
installation
reference the
of it.
grinder system cleanup.
Any future private property installations
Right,
with pressure systems should not need a clean out. Right. That's the city's recommendation, but they can give their interpretation. That way we can get the issue solved once and for all.
right.
So that when that inspector goes out in the future, well, no. Then somebody else won't have to go through,
Right,
fortunately, what you're going
Right.
through.
we're trying to be good citizens of your city.
I mean, the only reason it came up to us is because we're the first ones to do it.
Right.
So I mean, it's
You're paving the road for everybody else.
spot on there.
Any other comments, discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Don't be kind.
Opposed?
Larry's not ready to resign.
You're all
Thank you
in.
so much. We appreciate the input
Yeah.
and the direction.
And hopefully these guys can, maybe our other guy.
All right, thank you. for coming.
I got your number. I got a whole file on you guys. It must be Neil.
I'm Neil.
Nice.
There's gonna be a lot of folks who are gonna wanna hook up. But couldn't get the issue solved.
Anybody want a bottle of water? Go.
I'll get it. How many do you need? One? No one else?
Update.
So, for the wastewater treatment facility contract one, construction status update, there is, I did hand out and I did include in the email with the agenda, the monthly construction update. There continues to be some work on site. It is paring back a little bit, but, a lot of the main focus right now is site work. Fencing's going up,
Thank you.
and electrical work. And then there's a little bit of process piping work too, that kind of continues, but by and large, you know, the site's really coming together. If you kind of look at the pictures, you'll note that really starting to look like, or it does look like a treatment facility. Even in the admin building, you know, the ceilings are in, cabinets are in, countertops are in. You know, there's a little bit of work to do yet in terms of some of the flooring pieces, but you know, they're really the last things that need to get done. So we can kind of continue to see progress there. Note that the contractor pay request number 20 is only $181,000, which is a pretty small pay request for them. Right, they're about almost 92% complete based on the total value completed to date. So that'll go to council for approval at the August 15th council meeting. So just as an FYI, we did have substantial completion dates. If you remember, the treatment facility was supposed to be constructed to a point where we could initiate operations for low flows, so we could start connecting those grinder stations. That was supposed to happen July 8th. It didn't happen. And the main reason it didn't happen is MCCs are still not here, and that electric pole switchgear issue that we had. And so those items are kind of holding up this show, but the contract says those are the completion dates, and there are liquidated damages tied to that. We are not holding back or recommending that the council hold back liquidated damages at this point in time. We're gonna basically reserve the right to do that if at some point we want to, but you know, liquidated damages for the treatment facility are about $105,000 a month. And if we start holding that money back now, that really creates some ill will with the contractor and hardship. And you know, liquidated damages, we kind of talked about before, it's just not free money. You kind of got to prove damages, and there are some pretty significant caveats that come with that. But that is a recommendation. We've had some discussion with the city attorney. He's sending them a notice about the completion dates, at least the initial milestone completion dates not being met. There are still substantial completion dates that are I think November 1st, and then final completion dates into next year, which they have, we haven't broached those issues, but, the same issue, exists with Fitzgerald. They aren't completely ready to go. Lift stations aren't operational at this point because they don't have the control panels, the electrical components. To operate those lift stations are still not here either, and so those facilities aren't operational. Most all of the pipe is in the ground with the exception of a little bit of gravity sewer. That would ultimately serve some of the grinder stations. It's kind of a moot point at this point because the treatment facility isn't operational anyway, but they're gonna get the same letter. And they'd be treated the same way. Just kind of to let you know what's going on there. Any questions about the status of construction or the pay request situation that you guys want to talk to? Obviously, you're all welcome to come out there. We say that every month, but if you have the opportunity to come out, let me know, let Jeff know, and I'm sure I would be happy to walk through with you. Come take a look.
Last month, there was some discussion about the contract, the electrical contractor, I think specifically was asking for a increase in the contract payment for the temporary electrical service, and it was, liquidated damages were brought up as one counterpoint. How did that discussion?
Well, we've had a series of meetings. I had asked for a bunch of additional information from the contractor to justify the costs. Associated with the MCC modifications as well as the switchgear temp panels. Essentially, I got none of it. And no additional information. And at that same meeting, we'll get down in a little bit down farther in the agenda, but the MCCs didn't show up in July like they were supposed to. Now they're supposed to be shipped on August 18th and arrive at the end of August. So that would be the third ship date that we've gotten. Hopefully this one's correct, but none of us would bet our life on that at this point, that's for sure. And obviously that is having an impact. And I had a pretty pointed meeting with a contractor that kind of said, we're trying to be a good partner. You need to be a good partner. You need to take some responsibility for the scheduling. I know that there are pieces of the puzzle here that are outside of your control, but there are pieces that have been inside their control that didn't exactly proceed expediently. And, what are the ramifications if we just say, no, we're not paying it? What are you gonna do? Not install it, not start up the facility and then just maintain it for the next year? They don't want to do that either. And so we left it that the prime contractor would circle back with subs and see if they could do a little better. And so I have a draft change order. I did send it to the contractor. There are 3 components of that change order that I have asked for additional information or pricing modification on. I haven't got that back. I think the project manager is on vacation this week. So it's unlikely that I'll get that back for the council meeting even, but that's not our fault. It's not the city's fault. They wanna have some assurances moving forward that they make investments in the temporary facilities that they'll at least get paid something. But we need some assurances too, and it's gotta be a collaborative effort, and that's the direction that I'm trying to push things towards, but to be honest, I'm a bit frustrated. But I think we'll get there. So. Other wastewater treatment facility. Thoughts, questions?
That's August of next year, correct?
No.
Switch gear.
Switch gear, yeah.
The MCC stuff is August 18th of this year. The switch gear is to be shipped in October of next year, 24.
October, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is crazy.
That's service.
It is crazy.
We have stuff 80 weeks out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
For the airport, for landing lights, 80 weeks out. We're like,
Well,
It's not even a real number.
I don't know, how do you freaking plan 80 weeks?
there are projects that aren't getting built because they can't get concrete manhole and concrete pipe. We got all ours because it was ordered a long time ago, but that is a reality for people right now. And it has been for quite a while. Just to kind of say how crappy things kind of are
Yeah.
in some spots of the world.
It just seems random though, you know, like you can get drywall but no screws, you know.
Yeah.
You can get the screws you need, but you can get others.
Well, the electrical pieces are pretty consistent,
Yeah.
whether it's, well, it's control panels and some of the switchgear pieces
Starters
and,
and
yeah,
big breakers.
yep, those things seem to be problematic. But on the other side, the people that are making the equipment, they're not late. They're using some of those components. They somehow get them. I can't explain it.
What's the status of the temporary panels? Are they here? 400?
So yeah, they are not new. They would be used facilities that the contractor is in the process of procuring. They don't expect that that will be a problem. They have some of it in hand, and if they don't have it in hand, they can get it. But it is not new. It's
Right.
salvaged panels.
Is there a time frame?
So again, that they want that change order to move forward, so they know.
Oh, the change orders driving the delivery of the amps or the two panels?
There's that piece of it. Right now, the big issue is the MCC stuff. There's no sense in temporary wiring anything unless you have the machine control stuff. And that, until that comes,
Tied,
the-
yeah.
temp panels stuff doesn't mean anything,
Mhm, mhm. Okay,
but it's all gonna kind of, our timelines are compressing quickly here. And so things need to start happening. So based on the delay in the MCC stuff and all that we're kind of talking about, we're talking about, instead of commissioning in September, commissioning in October. Everything is essentially, we lost a month with not getting the MCCs in July. And so now we're starting operations in mid to late October or November, I'm sorry. And then I talked to you about the change order. Things on the change order include, that biosolid loadout station, the gas service. For the private utility allowance. The temp power, the MCC one. And an item with that vent hood in the lab in the makeup air unit being pulled out. So that's a credit. I think those are the items that we're talking about. Nothing new, but I don't have resolution because basically I'm waiting, hoping that we can come to some resolution on what I think at least is a reasonable cost. And so
Okay.
until we get that. So that's where we're kind of at on that.
Is there any risk with, because a lot of the components that Staub has put in the pumps and stuff like that, they were put in June or July. So they could be sitting there 5 to 6 months with no action, nothing being done to them. Is that a risk too?
I think it is. You don't want that equipment just to sit there.
Yeah, that's,
And so the contractor is prepared to maintain that. And that's one of the things that we've talked about is it costs them time and money to maintain it.
Mhm.
And, if that really were to delay until 2024, that's a long time. And there's some risk with that, and the warranties don't start until we start operation, and so they don't want that. And
Would
so,
that fall into like a change order discussion or cost, or how would you handle that officially other than?
well, they'd have to bring a change order request forward. They haven't mentioned that. They've indicated that they're prepared to, maintain facilities until we start operations. And I think it's in their best interest and the city's best interest to start operations as soon as we can and not let that equipment sit.
I agree, it's just.
And obviously not provide service to the users, and there's a lot of reasons to do that. And I've had that discussion with the contractor recently to remind them of that scenario. And why they need to partner with us. I think that's a reasonable argument.
I'd say the 50-50 November is a crapshoot anyway.
Well, like I,
It's all dependent on somebody.
and the contractor will say they'll not guarantee anything, but they'll also say in the next sentence, Allen Bradley's been better lately. And they've been shipping more closely, or when they say they're gonna ship at this point, which, a year ago wasn't the case, but.
Okay.
Is there a minimum number of subscribers have to be on to start the plan?
Yeah, there really kind of is a minimum flow. I mean, you just wouldn't want a trickle running through that plant, but we have the ability to add the subdivisions or Orinoco Estates pretty quickly. And so, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that definitely needs to be coordinated, and we
Right.
wanna, we don't wanna try to mess with just the trickle
Right, right.
coming through that facility. The lifts, things just don't work well
Right.
like that. But we have some flexibility in what we're doing there, especially with Orinoco Estates so close and the subdivisions that, the river parks and
Yeah.
that can be tied over pretty quickly.
Good.
Moving on to the treatment facility, or the contracts 2 and 3, the sanitary sewer collection, water main improvements. Contractor continues to push pretty hard here in town. They've got, 3 utility crews plus Ellingson crews, I guess. Have been Ellingson crews installing the grinder stations up till this week. They did pull out, they're about half done. They have some other, priorities to push on here over the next month or so, and they'll be back. But they continue to make really pretty good progress. Many of you probably noticed that Minnesota Avenue has been closed here, the last 2 days. It closed on the 7th. It did open up tonight. They installed, trunk gravity sewer across Minnesota Avenue at 4th Street North. And then they are continuing kind of with the 4th Street North west improvements in that trunk gravity sewer, towards Orinoco Park. And so they'll continue there. They're also working on, water main and sanitary sewer on 5th Street Southwest. They're almost done there. And the next place that crew is gonna go is, there's a section of gravity sewer that needs to be constructed between, let's say, 2nd Street Southwest on the east side of Minnesota Avenue towards Cedar Point Road and the Gas and Go. So they'll be removing a little bit of bituminous shoulder there and installing that gravity sewer through that corridor over the next few weeks. And then the last crew is working down here on East Center Street. And more specifically, there's a, I think it's either an alley or half street that goes to the south. And they're starting sewer on that. So they'll continue on that and then move across Minnesota Avenue on into East Center Street, probably after that's done. But contractors doing a lot of work. They're gonna suspend work after a few days next week. For Gold Rush, they're promising to clean things up and have good road conditions and smooth boulevards for the Gold Rush event. So we've discussed it at length many times. They're well aware of it and they seem to be cooperative and understand the situation there, so we're hopeful for continued good weather and that should go okay. The proposed Timberline sanitary sewer reconfiguration, I did meet with the property owner there a couple weeks ago again. I did tell him that we do need an answer one way or the other, soon, so the contractor can order the materials. I had some correspondence again with them today and I still don't have an answer as to what they might wanna do. That's the property owner kind of by the low point of Timberline Drive, and there's those 3 big culverts there, and we gotta go under them, and there happens to be rock underneath the culverts, and in an area we were planning to directional drill, but we can't because there's a rock outcropping there, so we're gonna have to either open cut it, which will be painful for everybody that lives out there, including the adjacent property owners, or there's a alternate alignment that we could essentially go kind of off-road around their house through a drainage easement to kind of connect the dots from where that existing lift station is on Timberline to the trunk main, so we can eliminate that lift station and so it's a difficult choice for the property owner, and I'm just trying to let them see the realities of both alignments and let them pick on what they want to do.
Is there a deadline they have to have that decision by for this project to stay on track?
Well, if they can't make a decision, we're just gonna have to go and stay in the right of way. You know,
When is that?
like within the month. This month we need to know. Otherwise, it's gonna get too late, too fast. We have to order manholes, and not we, the contractor has to order manholes. We gotta give them an opportunity to have success.
Was the owner being objectionable or just?
No, I think they're just
Contemplating the,
Yeah, I think they're just contemplating the various scenarios, and, you know, both of them are fairly disruptive. They'd lose. You know,
Around the house.
they'd have impacts to driveways and trees. So if we stay in the right of way, and impacts to trees, if we kind of run around the north side of the house, and they have a difficult decision to make, and I'm just trying to let them know, and let him pick. I'm not trying to push them at all. One way or the other.
From a cost standpoint, does the city have a risk or exposure on either one of those?
I think that there's more costs associated with being along Timberline Drive, but it's not, you know, a huge difference. Just because, you know, we'd have to remove and replace those culverts for one, you know, and there's more rock to come out, and more driveways to fix, and more road to fix, and so there are some trade-offs there, no doubt. The other thing is access on Timberline. If that gets dug up, I mean, there is no way to get to those houses today.
2-week park and ride or something.
3-week park and ride type of deal, or park and walk type of deal.
Park and walk up to Second Avenue or something.
Cause
Street kind
It's
of
not
dead, it's
good.
funny, maybe go off road.
maybe. But you're driving through somebody else's property. No, it's a tough situation.
The side-by-side taxi service. Don't bet you're there.
That would be a profitable one, perhaps. Fitzgerald, you know, they are behind on street reconstruction. That's one of the things that we've been having a lot of discussions about. They've got a lot of streets that are in temporary rock and need to be rebuilt, or need to be the rock that they brought in earlier in June needs to be added to so they can tolerance for paving. And their big hangup is they crush their own material. They have a pit just to the southwest of town. They just brought the crusher there this week. And so they should have rock pretty quick. But that's been one of their delays, that they don't have rock to rebuild road. And so they've been focusing on pipe work and not reconstructing rock, which has been
Is this
problem.
rock there or concrete from other projects that they've had that they're crushing?
They do some of both. They can do some of both. They had a little bit of a stockpile of concrete and bituminous that they did crush, and we did allow them to use in a few select spots, but most of this, what they're doing now is a gravel pit and it's virgin rock. That
The
they
stuff is all blowed, I guess.
They
ready to
blast it,
crush.
yeah, I think I was told they moved in the crusher here, earlier this week. And so they'll probably be crushing today, tomorrow,
Yeah.
soon. It obviously takes a little bit of time, to do that, but
Yeah.
they do that because they control the material source and it's a close haul.
Did Fitzgerald have a pay request?
They do have a pay request, and that pay request is about $779,515.46.
One more.
Give or take.
$779,515.46.
Thank you.
So it's a pretty good sized pay request. But it does reflect. They've got a decent amount of pipe in the ground in the last month, and they have had people here pushing, and they need to continue to push. But they are making good progress. And back to closer to the schedule that they projected previously. Questions on the sewer downtown stuff?
And it went right past my house, so.
Oh.
It's my turn. Your turn too.
Did Jeff come and talk to you about your service?
I talked to everybody several times, so yeah, we should be, I talked to the intern and the other engineer,
Katie?
yeah.
Okay,
But
and you
what-
got what you needed
Got
though?
what I
And
needed,
Jeff
yeah.
wasn't there?
Mhm.
Jeff is the senior.
Yeah, he was there one
Okay.
day, but he gave me a day to decide and I let those guys know what to do. So now I just need somebody to tip my house to the north instead of the south.
Well, that's easy.
A little bit of mud jack and it'll take care of it.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And Larry, Jeff, I know Jeff met with you, Jeff and Katie met with you.
Yeah. I wanna get rid of 110-year-old vitreous pipe. And that's step one, rip out basement floor.
That sounds like a fun project.
Oh, I can't wait.
Good job done.
Yeah.
Moving on to the RFQ, price proposal for the wastewater system operation, maintenance and management, proposal. So we have received proposals from, people that were interested. We solicited four, four companies and didn't get as robust of a response as we wanted. But I did provide copies from the one entity, I guess, that did submit, so that was People Service. And they have a proposal. I think we sent it out by email. Within that proposal, they didn't follow the RFP from the standpoint of they were supposed to provide some pretty detailed information about who would be staffing the facility and how many hours they would be working and what the costs were for various elements of the project. Instead, they gave us a more generic proposal and a lump sum monthly cost. And so Sonny and I have been emailing back and forth with their leadership, asking questions and asking for more detail. I have provided you guys with kind of a PDF of the correspondence that we've had and the additional information that they've essentially provided at this point. Did anybody have a chance to really look through this?
So we're hiring somebody direct to run this plant, it sounded like, is that correct?
Well, no, they're a corporation and they have operators through the area.
That's why they said they couldn't provide you a name, this is they were
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
hire somebody
Yeah,
specifically, and then they rotate their staff, so they have cross train
right. But, you know,
for $18,717 a month.
yes, that's kind of a synopsis of it, you know.
Is that a going rate? Cause that just seems high, but maybe that's what you need to cover all those people in salaries. I don't know.
Yeah, I think about $16,900 of that is basically labor and benefits and supplies and some testing and incidental expenses, and then they do have a chemical cost allowance included in that for about $1,300 a month, and then a maintenance fee cost of about $500 a month. Both of those costs kind of true up at the end, so they keep track of what the actual cost is, and if it's more or less than what they estimated, then city pays.
I guess here's my question to you. What did we anticipate or budget this would cost? Well, initially by having a third party run it, but then long-term when the city, right, is gonna have it, what's our expected operating cost versus our revenue that we're gonna collect from fees and stuff?
So our cash flow projection included an initial 2024 operating operations cost of about $293,000. And so if you take all of their costs and then you start adding some things that they didn't include, like biosolid disposal and garbage service and gas service and internet and a few things like that, you come up with a total cost of about, at least I penciled out quickly today, because I just got this information, about $309,000. So, you know, that is about what? $16,000 over what we'd estimated in 2021 for 2024. That doesn't include any city staff time though, for things like billing or oversight or operation of the grinder stations, which is another thing that they kind of propose in here. We wanted Public Works to be more of a partner involved in the facility, and they kind of pushed back and said, you know, we aren't in the business of training other people to do our job. Which I can appreciate from some perspective, but that's not ideal from the owner's perspective, and having a hand in what is happening there and understanding it and being a partner to what's going on. But they chose to kind of carve out the operation maintenance of the grinder stations and the gravity sewer. Their proposal is to operate and maintain the lift stations and the wastewater treatment facility. And so, based on my quick math, that's kind of where we come out. Sonny, I don't know if you've had the chance to run any math or do any analysis. I can
You know, but I do think, that those kind of things, I think this is all still kind of open for negotiation. From both perspectives, say. In terms of the RFP was pretty clear in what we wanted. It was also, written that, you know, we could overlook some technicalities that weren't. So I think it's open for negotiation. And certainly in talking with Kane earlier today, was that just today? Yeah. You know, we are a little concerned about the pieces that they're willing to let Public Works take on or retain, let's say, versus where we want that to go.
So have you, obviously you're back and forth with Chad, the president of this company and organization. Has it been made clear, like certain things like the training Kane and city employees is a key aspect to this agreement. That when we make a decision, that's a key thing we're looking for. So
We did
their
have,
general policy may not be to do that, but for their benefit and for the benefit of winning a contract, that's a key piece of this. We were looking for a partner to take this on initially to train us, that they're not gonna be doing this long term.
Well,
Right.
from their point of view, then they're hiring a full-time employee for a 3 to 5 year contract, and then at the end of that contract. Either absorb them into their operation or cut them loose.
yeah, there's commitments have to be made on both sides of the equation, certainly. So I think we can all appreciate that, but. You know, that was another piece that the RFP said we wanted a 3-year contract with a two-year options for the city, and we got a 5-year contract. Is what they're proposing. You know, so that's another item that's probably open for some negotiation or discussion, but.
Pricing is only good for 1 year, I thought it said.
Well, it's good for 1 year, and then there's an escalator based on the change in the consumer price index plus 1%, if I remember right. Which doesn't seem absurd.
And this is the only proposal we got back. Veolia either didn't attend or didn't respond.
They attended the pre-proposal meeting, but they did not submit, a proposal.
And they're not going to.
They are past the deadline, and so they declined to submit.
So it's this or nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm nothing, can't do nothing.
Cave.
Start reading it.
Yeah, I'll help you, but then finding a licensed operator, sign the,
Class A.
yeah, the DMR for the state.
Yeah, we really wanted 2 proposals, at least.
Well, we don't have as much negotiation power, I guess. Back to negotiations if that's it. And they know it.
Well, I don't know what they do or don't know yet. That's why I'm kind of hesitant to really broadcast that we got 1 proposal. But
Yeah, RFP is not like a bid opening, right? It's not a public thing. It's it won't be public until it goes to council or somebody watching. Nobody watches this.
Except people service. I'm gonna call tomorrow. When are you gonna close that, Sonny?
So looking at the dates, what are we proposing for dates?
If I could just add, speaking from experience, I've worked with both companies in the past. And either one, my experience has been more so with people service, limited with Veolia. But I have found them to be amenable to working together and basically being a good partner, right? And because they don't wanna be in for 3 years and then just be out. I mean, they want, and obviously bringing their name here, I mean, not that you hadn't heard from them before either, but they know kind of how I operate and they're of like mind. So when I say that I think we have an opportunity for discussion and negotiation, I believe that things. And I think I have the relationship, at least with some of the people there, that we can accomplish some things. And obviously, my highest priority is the city of Arnold, of course. So.
People is the biggest, they have the biggest presence in southeast Minnesota by Veolia has a very some presence there more central and northern.
Looking through their staff and the number of people and so they have the coverage and.
Yeah, they have the ability to do this, no doubt about it.
Just curious, Joe, does anyone in Stantec provide consulting and, you know, the licensed operator portion, the review and signing of the state.
We are
Reports.
not. We don't have that staff person right now. We haven't for a decent number of years.
Like I think maybe WHKS might do that. I don't know
They
for
might.
sure, but. I'm sure somebody's doing it for Jack. You know, those kind of things, but.
CBRE.
But in which case, either it's still fall mostly on city staff with the backup of a licensed professional to complete the paperwork more or less. That doesn't really seem practical to start that process from scratch at this point either.
No, if it was 5 years in, you could maybe contemplate that.
Yeah.
You know, you can contemplate some different options. When staff is more seasoned and maybe you have more. Public works staff is pretty. Lean.
Experience, SOPs, manuals, we have nothing.
You don't have a big staff.
Yeah.
So,
All the
So-
tiny.
well, no, there's no doubt about it, but. it's
So
just
we're
a
moving
lot.
these dates out then? TV determine all of them?
Well, I think one of the issues we had talked, I think we should still interview them. And ask questions. It's just that their staff that wanted to come to the interview were unavailable. One was on vacation and one was something else.
Working on another site.
Maybe both on vacation for part of it, and then he had another obligation, something. So Sonny's gonna schedule that, correct? At some point here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, looking for dates. I guess. Because it would take a special meeting.
So the request for information, is there more information that we're looking for? Do we pretty well have everything we're gonna get from people service?
And we have more questions.
So there's some things still waiting before we really decide when we're gonna be ready to interview.
Well, I know, I think we can set up the interview anytime. It's just. What we can even ask questions we'll ask questions at the interview even, but.
Right.
Give them as much time to prepare as possible. I think another thing that would be good to do is take their agreement and give it to our city attorney. And get a leg up on that and make sure that. He's comfortable with the language. Maybe he's already reviewed it. And then at some point in the near future, we're gonna have to basically make a selection and get the green light to go ahead, and so. Unfortunately, our options are
Non-existent.
right now, non-existent, we don't have any options. Well, we don't have any other good options. I don't know, Sonny, did you have any thoughts on how we move forward and facilitate this?
Fortunately, this month is budget workshop. Month two, so. But I do think that it's best if the interview is scheduled with both council and. You have different viewpoints, different perspectives. We'll be asking
That's
different
true, but you still have one option. I mean,
Well, the other option is that you can reject it and go back out. And recontact the same 4 people. I'm just saying. There are options.
I mean, from what you said, People Service is a good company. They're reputable, they can do it. They ideally work with us, right? So I guess it's not like we got some no-name sketchy Bob. Bob just started his own company and it's his first gig,
There's a list at the back of it.
Yeah.
I saw that.
so.
We expected they'd probably be the leading candidate, just because they have the biggest footprint down here. It's not a surprise, but I was disappointed we didn't get a second proposal. I think, you know, just the point of emphasis is we need somebody under contract as soon as possible. So they can participate, you know, they have to staff up and then they need to participate in the commissioning and training and then be available for startup. And we're talking about October, November, and it's August. There's not a lot of time.
Did I see somewhere they need 90 days?
Well,
Staff up and to be ready, is that what I read somewhere?
they kind of say that. They also say that, you know, they'll staff on an interim basis with other resources if they need to, but, you know, to be fair to them, the more time that we can give them to staff up and be prepared, the better we're gonna be off. So
Can I ask a dumb question? Is it? At least in my laboratory medicine profession, it's hard to get qualified people. They're to hire somebody, is there people out there to hire? I guess that's my question, like that whole, the appropriate licenses that they need.
They're billing out at $70 an hour. You know, so that kind of gives you a little bit of window on what the wage scale is.
they have the appropriate licensure in-house. They can sign the DMRs, and probably staff the work, but
The person who's our dedicated operator may not be an A operator. Doesn't mean they're not a qualified wastewater operator, it's just,
They
it might
don't,
not,
they don't need to hold it, because somebody in the company
Yeah.
has it.
yeah.
The operators 45 minutes away or 30 minutes away
Right.
in Lewiston.
Okay.
So,
I just didn't know, like, you give them 90 days, but it's gonna take them a year to find a body to hire.
But
It
yeah.
doesn't matter how much lead time you get them, they're not gonna get somebody any faster.
well, they know their industry better than we do, right? They say they can do it, you gotta say, okay.
Yeah.
So I just would emphasize we need to push to get this moving. And, you know, we can talk about the interviews and all of that, but got one person interview, so
Are you suggesting then at council meeting, you guys make a recommendation to council then? That council next week authorized us to start?
negotiations of the contract, and
Yeah.
Is that where you're headed, Joe?
that's kind of what seems to give city staff the authority to, the authority to begin negotiations with the submitter, and then I would schedule in my opinion, I'd schedule the interview, and if you can make it, you can make it, and if you can't, you can't. But we can't just sit here and look for a date for the next month to have this, because it has to move forward. And it probably has to move forward on, reviewing the contract, negotiating the contract. And, addressing questions and making sure that we have the scope nailed down within the contract, and the interview is really a part of that at this point. So those are my 2 cents.
I mean, on the original timeline, it really looks like we wanted something done by the end of this month.
We did. We lost a month when the MCCs weren't just delivered in July though, and so the whole timeline moves back, so unfortunately, we gained a month of timeline here to work with them, but I don't want to waste it.
I make a motion, we recommend to council that city staff proceed with negotiations and interviews with the submittal company
I'll second.
Discussion?
The lawyer will be involved in the whole thing too.
I think Mike needs to get that contract and have a role, yes. Definitely.
Are they still working outside? Hearing some noise like that.
Yeah. I would guess.
Sounds like a jet.
So that's somebody scraping a road?
They're dragging the shoring down to the next hole, something.
So,
Anyway.
okay. Any other comments? If there's anything that, I'm on vacation from August twenty-sixth to September twelfth, so if anything can be done before the 26th, I'd appreciate being, that's, part of the interviews or whenever you do that, that'd be great, but I agree with Joe, we can't wait. But we can start the negotiations, interviews, and come if need be, the September, whatever that date is, or before.
Anything else on people and
Does the 24th work for people?
Thursday night,
actually it might not work for me. I kind of count meeting that night.
Or the 21st? You'll all be wiped out from Gold Rush.
might be a short meeting.
24th, you said?
21st or 24th?
I can do both of them. That matters.
Or next week, the 16th, but that's start of Gold Rush, so maybe not.
Don't go there.
Don't go there. Let's next week.
Next week's off limits, huh?
We're kicking the contractors out, and leave. Okay, 21st,
Or 24th. So are you deciding on the 21st?
if they're available,
Okay. Monday,
21st or the 24th, depending on availability.
What time?
6:30.
So you'll contact them and
Yep.
let us all know.
Okay, any other comments with the motion? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It's approved. There's nothing else with that, then we're down to our decommissioning of our community wastewater treatment systems, a letter to the owners.
Has gone out.
That's gone out,
Yes.
okay,
Both of them. Well, two developers, right?
and Cedar Woodlands,
It's good with this.
Cedar Woodlands. 2, 1, all the above. 2,
Us, too.
just send it to Paul.
I'll take it home, I'll save you a stamp.
Okay, so I haven't heard back from them, no surprise. And have not heard back on from Mr. Jack, is it Jack?
Steve Jack,
Yeah, on Journey Development, haven't heard
Yep.
back. from him. have met with Dan Fitzpatrick and have an offer from him. So
An offer from him?
Did we ask for an offer?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
it was negotiable item. I just got this last night, 9:14 PM. So, yeah, I haven't had a chance to touch base with you. Gold rushing, as they say. Yeah, so he submitted proposal for settlement to him. Very generous proposal regarding the turnover of my utility services of Orinoco LLC customers to the city of Orinoco Municipal Service, Sewer Service. I can quick run a copy of this, and in interim, I can, you wanna do this, yeah.
This was the owner for the one property that we were talking about potentially having to fix because it wasn't straight, right? And then at the end of it, it's gonna be ours anyways, because, okay, just wanna make sure we're talking about the same person.
Well, I'll be right back with this.
Have you seen this, Joe? Like Christmas.
$250,000.
I'm assuming though that generous offer is that he wants money from the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the offer is, from my gathering is he wants to be paid. But legally, that's not how it works.
Such an inconvenience. Windmill with the pump, the lever pump. I get green energy credits from that though. It's a windmill.
So are we approving or rejecting his offer?
What's that?
There's no comment.
I was asking Joe his opinion of the offer.
I'm not shocked, I guess, that he submitted something, because I kind of figured he would. I'm not sure that there's a basis for it, but
Well, isn't that gonna be the response back? That. So,
Good luck with all that kind of deal.
well, it could just be a lack of understanding, right? Or maybe not, okay. I was giving you the benefit of the doubt.
thinking that's not bad.
Doesn't surprise me.
You can go see what's. Maybe we should just turn the air conditioner back on and then it won't matter.
Like they're racing side by sides in the street or something. Oh, they're resurrecting some four-stroke in front of the plumbers.
Yeah. Oh, the waterworks.
Which is legit. I mean, I'm done with that. I'm a gearhead, so. Yeah, the waterworks. I stopped to buy corn and the waterworks kids were there. And I goes, your dad or not? I can talk about plumbing. He goes, no. I said, I need him work in my basement. He goes, he's got a jackhammer. He's got you covered. I'm like, all right, kid, thanks. Thanks for that. Yeah. Anybody know anybody wants to saw out my basement floor and haul it up the stairs? Larry, you got some time tomorrow?
No. I'm busy all day.
The day after that, I'm busy.
Busy.
Sounds like an exercise program to me.
Yeah, really, yeah, that's
gotta
the
take-
problem.
Take that in perspective, right?
Need those 20-year-old kids with the 5-gallon buckets to haul concrete chunks upstairs all day. That's what I need.
Don't that American Waterworks do stuff like that?
You know, they might, I hadn't thought about that. So as I was talking American Waterworks, when they used to dump all their junk on that chunk of property as you're coming down the hill from the roundabout,
Oh, yeah,
their
Was that,
property or,
who dumped that there?
they stopped them for that.
Yeah, they stopped somebody.
they were
That's
just
who it was.
dumping though, they're like, let's dump it here. Does it
Yeah,
have
they-
Permission.
They had junk and stuff mixed in with.
Oh, I know, I drive by and be like, hey, look, there's pipe sticking out of that,
Yeah.
you know? Is that state property or or is that,
No, I think it almost believe that belonged to that Haney farm, didn't it? Because.
It's probably not the state. because
Well,
of
I
the
know,
fence.
you know, Carl Kraus, he was selling cars on that property. One time he that's where he started.
Really?
Yeah, he had some cars out there in a little place but I kind of understood all the time that the Haneys up there was in control of that. Kind of at that time, and he was renting that from them, and I may be all wrong, I don't know, I just. Of course, they
Did
just,
you ever, we're waiting for her to come back. Did you ever hear what MnDOT's doing up on that one angle of
Driveway
the
that goes
interchange?
up.
by the French bridge, yeah.
well, they was supposed to have been making a burning facility up there is what they said, they was gonna make it when they trim out some brush, that's what they told me, they was gonna burn stuff up there.
Oh.
I don't know how they could burn stuff that close to the highway.
Top of the hill
Yeah.
next to the highway sounds
Yeah.
like terrible.
I don't, and I've never really seen them do anything more with it.
Thank you.
This,
Thank you.
too, I don't need to tell you, is
Oh, very
open
generous.
to negotiation too, so.
My guess is it's gonna be lawyers negotiating this. I don't think I'll have much.
Oh, it's very generous in capital letters.
I felt warm and a wave of contentment when I saw that.
I have no history with him, so.
The governor don't want much, do they?
Sounds like a good issue to get the attorney involved in.
Okay.
I said it sounds like a good issue to get an attorney involved in.
Yeah. There's agreements out there and I would, encourage committee members to keep this somewhat confidential, but
And as you noticed, it is addressed to me, so.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, I think can be fairly quiet.
Yeah, it's not addressed to the committee, we appreciate you copying this for us, kind of give us the background of what could potentially happen here, but at the same time, I think we need to, and I'm sure Mike would agree with this, that we keep this as confidential amongst yourself and not to be shared outside the shared with others, I guess. That's a proper way to say it. Let's just kind of wrap this up here. Last item. Second to the last meeting. So our last meeting, we had a motion to recommend that the 1 year time frame and combining sewer and water codes. You sent to P and Z, so is that on their agenda for tomorrow night or Thursday night?
Thursday night,
Okay. All right,
yes.
yeah, I see that, August 10th. Last item was our discussion we had about
Yeah, no,
Dylan's update.
no update. We can table that for.
So our next meeting is September the 12th, I think. And I don't get back into Minneapolis until 6:30. So I will not be at the meeting. So we don't have a vice chairman. Unless somebody want to volunteer to take the committee.
I read it last time.
What's that?
I read it last time when you weren't.
Okay. I'm assuming we have. It'd be worth having a meeting, I guess is what I'm saying. A lot of things coming out of council and updates on the project and everything, so. Joe, if you'd want to work with Jim on a update or agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get that distributed. Try and have the agenda out by September 7th at the latest.
You'll get that to me.
I'm sorry.
So we'll get that to me then for.
Yeah, like we've been doing here, yeah, recently. Okay, appreciate that. With that. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn? Larry, second?
I will second it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the update, Drew.
Sonny, do you want these back then?
If you don't mind. I do see that.
And that's when it goes away.
That's why I thank you. That's my, oops, thank you. That was it.
I just cut that up together, so.
Yep, things like that comes off page to page.
Yeah.
How much? Yeah. I'll get you that one. Cause you guys are not in that.
Yeah, we're lucky. I'm so lucky that.
Just have an HOA, right?
They bought it the rights off of it. And then he gave it to us, and so my wife and I was president, she was secretary of the HOA for the first 4 to 5 years of our association. And my wife's still the secretary, I finally gave the presidency, I was like, okay, I can be president of the HOA. for her. And, but we're fortunate because we own it all. So as an HOA. Great.
So are you gonna give us any problem?
Oh, I'm planning, I'm just waiting to see my office.
Equally generous.
I mean, now that I know it's worked. Yeah, I know. Oh. All right, have a good night. Night.